How does anything survive where the ground burns to 122 degrees and the air carries no water? Nothing here is built to keep a body alive. This is the largest desert on Earth. The Sahara. Sand runs to every horizon, 1,000 miles in every direction. And still, life holds on. In the dark, a train crosses the sand, a mile of cold iron beneath the stars. A salt flat lies so white and level that a film crew once used it for another planet. In a canyon no river can reach, 10 crocodiles hold a line 5,000 years old. On a cliff wall, a giraffe looms, painted in stone, left by hands that vanished when the rivers did. In the empty heart of it, a single tree stood alone for 3 centuries. So how do 10 million people call the cruelest land on Earth their home? The desert erases what it cannot keep, and it remembers what it erases. The forbidden zone is open. What survives here earned it. A 440-mile iron ore railroad cuts through the Mauritanian Sahara. Its train stretches 1.5 miles long, the longest in the world, in regular operation. From the Zuarate mines inland, the line heads west across open desert to the Atlantic at Nouadhibou. Most of the way offers nothing. No town, no tree, no water, only gravel and drifting sand. The Sahara spans 3.5 million square miles, the size of the United States or China. By day, the sun bakes the rails, and the air reaches 122 degrees Fahrenheit. SNIM built the line in the 1960s after independence. There was no road. There is none today. Communities along those 440 miles depend on this train as their only link outside. Passengers ride free, but not in passenger cars. They climb onto the ore in open wagons with no shelter. By journey's end, everything is coated in rust-red dust. Hair clothes the inside of the lungs. At night, the desert cools fast, and passengers wrap in wool against cold, indifferent to tonnage or timetables. The iron lies cold beneath them, the sound a deep, rhythmic clank for hours. "17,000 tons of ore. That number is economic necessity, For the people riding on top of it, it is also survival. When the desert removes every other option, humanity engineers one. But the railroad is not the strangest thing this desert has produced. A flat, lonely waste of gravel and stone near Asamaka border post, Nigeria. No tree, no shade, wind only. Cracked ground runs to the horizon, and the heat bends that horizon until it shakes. Not a single landmark stands within 50 miles in any direction. Out here, the heat can top 120 degrees. This is one of the deadliest routes on Earth, one that has carried human movement for hundreds of years. In June of 2026, a truck carrying about 100 Nigerians home from Eid in Mali broke down 50 miles west of Asamaka. They were stranded for days as the water ran out. "49 of them died of thirst. Only 2 survived, walking more than 30 miles to a water source and then on to Asamaka to raise the alarm. The rest were buried where they fell. The desert does not care. It draws no line between the ones who planned the crossing and the ones simply caught out along the way. Preparation, knowledge, money, none of it is enough. Once the desert has been underestimated, the Sahara doesn't care what you know. Tunisia's largest salt flat throws mirages so convincing that a film crew once used it for an alien planet. Chott El Djerid stretches about 7,500 square miles across southern Tunisia. It was once an inland sea. The Romans called it Lake Triton. When the water burned off, it left a salt crust 1 to 2 feet thick. People have harvested that salt here since Phoenician times. So when George Lucas wanted a place that looked like nowhere on Earth, he brought his crew here to shoot Tatooine in Star Wars. The physics of the mirage are exact. The sun heats the white crust past 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The effect has a name: Fata Morgana. Water that isn't there looks completely real. Travelers who didn't know the flat was salt have walked toward it for hours. Some never stopped. Guides charge triple the going rate to lead a midday crossing. The disorientation out here is enough to kill. At noon, the salt and the sky share the same brightness. The horizon simply disappears. with no fixed point to hold on to, a person loses all sense of direction within 40 minutes. The Sahara teaches one lesson before all others. Appearance and truth split apart here. Ground that looks solid can be a hollow shell of salt over brine. Water that looks close can lie 20 miles off, woven entirely out of light. Survival takes a hard discipline. Doubt everything the flat shows you. The nomadic Tuareg have crossed the Sahara for more than 2,000 years, with no maps and no fixed borders, and they became its architects. Rome drove them off the Libyan coast in the early centuries of the Common Era. They pulled back into the deep interior and rebuilt everything: law, property, identity, even what a face is allowed to show. The tagelmust, the veil worn by Tuareg men, runs 26 feet unwound. A man covers his face at puberty and never lifts it before strangers for the rest of his life. His wife is one of the few who ever see his face. To a Tuareg man, baring his face to a stranger is as good as standing naked. The cloth covers everything, holding moisture against the face, while the desert strips away everything outside it. Function and identity became the same thing. In Tuareg society, property belongs to the women. The tent is hers, the herds are hers, the children follow her line. In a divorce, the man walks away with one camel. The Tifinagh script, older than Arabic and older than Islam in this region, is kept and taught by women. The writing itself passes down the mother's line. The salt caravans from Air to Bilma cross 620 miles of open desert. Agadez is the gateway to the Tuareg's Tenere. Navigation falls to the Madugu, the caravan leader, who reads the shape of the dunes, the wind, and the stars. There are no landmarks for hundreds of miles. One man's memory carries the whole route. "2,000 years of this built nearly 2 million people, spread across 5 nations, with no fixed territory and no need for one." If the Tuareg built a civilization in the Sahara, what did the desert build? Out of the Moroccan desert, near Mazuga, dunes rise 500 feet. This is Erg Chebbi, the most photographed sand sea on Earth, built entirely by wind. The mechanism is simple. A northeast wind funnels through a gap in the mountains. Sand drops. Over thousands of years, it piles into a mega dune system, spread across roughly 22 square miles, a city of sand, 50 stories tall. The crest of a dune stays 15 to 20 degrees cooler than its base. The color turns through the day, rust orange at first light, pale gold at noon, deep shadow on the windward face by afternoon. The sand is sugar fine. Each step on it gives a soft squeak. By 9 in the morning, the wind has wiped away every footprint from the night before. The dune resets. It keeps no record of who stood there. Camel caravans used Erg Chebbi to steer by. The system aligns north to south, and from 30 to 40 miles out, the orange shows before any single dune comes into focus. Nineteenth-century trade records between Algeria and Morocco list it as a landmark. The merchants noted the color first, not the height. They knew it before they could see its shape. On the knife-edge crest, a lone figure throws a shadow 100 feet down the slope. That shadow is the only thing in frame that gives a sense of scale. Without it, the dune could be a mile high or a low hill. Wind made all of it, grain by grain. And to cross a place shaped like this, the desert offers one ally. What does the dromedary carry in its hump? £79 of fat, not water. The advantage is metabolic, and it beats simple water storage every time. Fat burned for energy throws off metabolic water as a byproduct. The hump is a portable fuel tank that also makes its own hydration from the inside. When water is there, a camel drinks 30 gallons in 10 minutes, then goes 7 days without. Its body temperature drifts between 93 and 105 degrees. It holds off sweating until the heat gap turns dangerous, and that alone stretches its range for miles. An animal that sweated like a horse would drop in hours where a camel crosses in a week. In a sandstorm, the camel's nostrils seal shut. The lashes close to slits. The footpad spreads wide on soft sand, then tightens on hard ground. The build is exact. The Tuareg say it plainly. If you are lost, trust the camel. Not the map, not your memory, not the stars. The camel. Those wide, padded feet make almost no sound on the sand. At first light, its shadow runs long across the dune. The smell of the animal in the heat, warm wool, salt, effort. Without the domesticated dromedary brought into the Sahara around 2,000 years ago, there is no Timbuktu, no Chinguetti, no trans-Saharan trade, no Tuareg salt caravan. The whole architecture of human life in the deep Sahara rests on an animal whose hump is not what people think it is. In Islamic tradition, camel milk is medicine. The camel appears 18 times in the Quran. A healthy dromedary gives 2 to 3 gallons of milk a day, even through a drought. For people moving between water sources days apart, that milk widens the margin between life and death. The camel is evolution's answer. The fennec is a smaller one. The fennec fox weighs 2 to 3 pounds. It is the smallest wild dog on Earth. The ears reach 6 inches long. On a body that size, those ears dominate the whole animal. Blood vessels run just beneath the surface of the ear tissue. Radiating heat through that surface keeps the fennec cool without any panting. The ears are an air conditioning system. The hearing they provide comes second to that. The fennec is nocturnal, coming out after dark once the surface temperatures have dropped. Through the day, the fox burrows into chambers 50 degrees cooler than the surface above. Its diet is insects, small eggs, and desert lizards. No water required. The animal has solved the desert's water problem by erasing the need for water entirely. Algeria chose the fennec as its national animal. The national soccer team is called Les Fennecs. In 2 to 3 pounds of animal, the Sahara produced 3 exact solutions. Ears that work as radiators, a nocturnal schedule that avoids the peak heat, a diet that removes any dependence on water, The anatomy was redesigned from the outside in. The Sahara tests the living and archives the dead. A giraffe, painted on cliffstone 30 feet above the desert floor, unreachable from below. Tassili Najer is the plateau in southeastern Algeria where 15,000 rock paintings show the Sahara as it was 10 millennia ago. The plateau covers 27,800 square miles, about the size of South Carolina, at an altitude of 6,600 feet. Henri Lot, the French explorer who catalogued the site in 1956, spent 18 months at Tassili. His team of artists traced every painting they could reach. Some called for scaffolding. Others had waited in dry air across the same span, holding detail no moisture had touched. Later surveys catalogued the full set across the plateau. UNESCO listed the plateau in 1982. The painted walls rise beyond reach of anyone on the ground below. Hippos, cattle in herds, people fishing in water that no longer exists. The African humid period ran from 10,000 to 3,000 BCE. The Sahara was a savanna. Rain fell. Rivers ran to the sea. People painted what they saw on the rock walls with pigments that have held for millennia in dry air. Then the climate dried. The animals moved south. The tribes followed. The water vanished. The paintings stayed. Giraffes last walked within 1,000 miles of this plateau 5 millennia ago. The cattle painted here stand for herding on land that is now dead. Some of the human figures strike shamanic poses, arms raised, limbs bent, in ways that match ritual postures across many ancient cultures. The ochre used for them stays intact, where nothing but dry air ever reached it. The Tuareg guides who work the plateau refuse to guarantee passage through certain corridors after dark. They say jinn live in those passages. The sacred geography is still active, still specific, still observed. The Sahara is confessing what it used to be. Its cruelty is geologically recent. 3 millennia of drying still underway. Even a desert can change so far that it turns into its own opposite. The images on the cliff face are its confession. At the edge of the Mauritanian Sahara, an old city of knowledge is slowly sinking into the sand, Chinguetti. By West African tradition, this is the seventh holiest city in Islam. The stone town here today went up around 1264. For centuries, pilgrims from across West Africa gathered here to prepare for the journey to Mecca. Narrow streets and courtyard houses crowd around a mosque with a square minaret. 5 ostrich eggs sit at its top. The whole structure is split stone, laid dry, with no mortar at all. Behind the earthen walls, thousands of handwritten manuscripts rest on parchment in worn leather bindings. The dry wood creaks as a book opens to a page, charting the course of the moon, marked with black dots and red crescents. The desert swallowed this place once already. 2 miles to the northeast, an older Chinguetti, founded around the year 777, now lies completely under the dunes. Now it comes back for the second town. The Erg creeps up to the windows and pours into the houses. The keepers brush sand off the pages every single day. A few families carry their books north to Nouakchott by camel, the same way the books first arrived. The minaret rises out of a dune that has already climbed halfway up it. The date palm groves at the village edge are the last green line between the houses and the desert. They are losing ground. The population has fallen below 5,000. UNESCO lists it as endangered. In the old quarter, Le Cassar, the silence breaks only for the sound of sand grinding against stone. The Sahara gives no ground back. Manuscripts, minarets, and 700 years of knowledge all go under the same dunes. Timbuktu understood that knowledge itself was the only lasting advantage. For centuries, Europe went half-mad over rumors of a city of gold so rich that gold roofed the houses. The name was Timbuktu, shorthand for somewhere so remote it was almost imaginary. The truth was humbler. The wealth came not from gold mines, but from salt. Flat-roofed, mud-brick houses line narrow sand streets where the Niger River trade met the Saharan caravan route. At its peak, Timbuktu drew about 50,000 people. Salt came from the north, gold from the south, weighed evenly, one slab of salt for one of gold. In the desert, salt was life, and Timbuktu held its road. Sankore University enrolled 25,000 students, older than most in Europe. The Great Mud Mosque of Jingwerebbe rose in 1327 under Emperor Mansa Musa. It has stood nearly 700 years, built of brick, straw, and wood. Wooden torons jut from its walls, both frame and permanent scaffold. Every year the community climbs up to plaster on fresh mud, patching what the summer sun cracked. In private libraries, 700,000 manuscripts came to rest: astronomy, poetry, law, medicine. The sea killed Timbuktu before the sand ever did. When European ships rounded the west coast of Africa, goods stopped crossing the sand and the caravans thinned. In 1591, Moroccan soldiers crossed the desert with guns, sacked the schools, and scattered the scholars. Only after the trade and learning were gone did the sand move into what was left. But the book survived. In 2012, an armed group seized the city and began burning manuscripts. Abdelkader Haidara, a librarian, spent his own savings moving 377,000 of them out by boat, hidden in trunks. Today, the streets are sand. The dust-colored houses blur into the streets into the sky. A man passes with a donkey, two women carry water, and the lane falls empty under the noon sun. Each morning, people sweep sand off their doorsteps to hold the desert back one more day. From the air, the city is barely separate from the dunes around it. Knowledge gathered where the sand meets the river proved the most lasting resource the desert ever produced. Beyond the trading towns, beyond the caravans, the Sahara hides things stranger than history. "600 miles of coastline. The Atlantic coastal desert runs along the shore of Mauritania and Western Sahara, where the cold Canary Current pushes up from the south. Rain falls here less than once a year. This is not a desert the way most people picture. Cold ocean water meeting warm desert air makes fog, not now and then, but steadily, 5 to 10 times the yearly rainfall. Soon, the ecosystem here evolved around fog. Rain stopped mattering. At dawn, fog beetles perch on the low dunes, heads into the wind, and gather the moisture beading on their backs. The droplets roll down into their mouths. A single net of traditional cloth stretched on poles can pull in 5 to 13 gallons of water a day. The fog rolls off a desert that gets almost none. Portuguese navigators charted this coast in the 1500s. They noted the fog banks with some confusion. A dense marine layer over desert sand matched nothing in European geography. The communities living here had solved that puzzle long before the Portuguese arrived. Fishermen along this coast face two hostile worlds at once. The Sahara behind them. The Atlantic in front. Life is split between what the land refuses to give and what the ocean gives, in a form that takes knowledge to collect. Flamingo colonies gather in the coastal wetlands, where fog-fed pools collect. Life arranged itself around water in a shape that has nothing to do with rain. The fog-adapted ecosystem reaches inland for miles. Desert plants here grow toward the fog, not toward the sun. Their lean is a record of which way the moisture comes from. Knowledge of the fog, gathered over generations, kept these communities alive, where rainfall never could. The Richat structure. 100 million years out in the open desert, and nothing has erased it. It spreads 30 miles across the desert floor of Mauritania, a set of concentric rock rings visible from orbit. NASA calibrated satellite systems against it. From orbit, it reads as a meteor impact crater, the concentric rings perfectly formed. but they are erosion rings, not impact. A volcanic dome pushed up through the surface, then wore away layer by layer over geologic time. Each layer eroded at its own rate, leaving concentric rings of different hardness. The geometry fooled satellite instruments for decades before ground surveys confirmed the erosion explanation. The Sahara's dryness preserved it. In absolute aridity, even a formation this old holds its shape. Nothing here decays fast enough to erase it. How can one stretch of ground be white as snow and black as coal, both halves deadly at midday? Inside the Farafra Depression, wind spent 50 million years carving the floor of a vanished sea, Egypt's white desert. The Tethys Sea covered this region from roughly 100 million to 50 million years ago. Chalk, a form of calcium carbonate, settled on the seabed over geologic time into massive beds. Tectonic movement lifted that floor above sea level, and the wind went to work the moment it was exposed. Soft chalk wears away faster than the harder layers. Over that span, chalk took the shape of mushrooms, chickens and standing columns. Each one records an erosion rate, a prevailing wind, a relative hardness. The formations reach 50 feet tall. They look carved on purpose. The patience of random physics turned out work finer than any human sculptor could keep up. By midday, that beauty turns hostile. Ground temperature by day hits the usual desert ceiling. At a height of 6 feet, it drops 40 degrees. Bedouin guides camp among the chalk, using the formations as a windbreak. Desert foxes shelter at their bases for the same edge. At night, the chalk catches the moonlight. In the dark, Bedouin navigators read the silhouettes from memory, steering by shape rather than direction. neighbor's Black Desert tells a different story. Dark basalt from ancient volcanic activity covers the valley floor north of the chalk. Ground temperatures here climb 20 to 30 degrees hotter than the white surface. The contrast shows from above, pale chalk columns at the edge of dark volcanic rubble. Two geological eras meeting at a line the desert drew. If the desert is a sculptor, its strangest work is in the south. Tibesti rises to 11,204 feet, higher than any summit east of the Mississippi. At that height, the Sahara turns bearable. Emikusi, the highest peak of the Tibesti Massif in northern Chad, is the tallest point in the whole Sahara. The massif cradles 9 volcanic calderas, some still active, geological fire, inside a land ruled by heat. Trou au Natron is a volcanic sinkhole, roughly 3,000 feet deep, its floor coated in white salt. Temperatures up here stay 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the floor below. That gap is the gap between life and death, where the margin is absolute. The Tubu, whose name means people of the rocks, have lived in Tibesti and the Enedi Plateau for generations. The Tubu kept their oral tradition, their camel and goat herding, and their independence through generations of pressure. French colonial forces tried. The terrain beat them. No battle required. That independence reached south into a second plateau. Enedi covers 23,000 square miles of sandstone highlands in eastern Chad. About the size of West Virginia, it was UNESCO listed in 2016. Its arches, canyons, and year-round water holes make it one of the richest pockets of life in the Sahara. Barbary sheep climb the cliffs with Dorcas gazelles, red-necked ostriches, and nearly 200 migrating birds at the water. Rock paintings cover the canyon walls. cattle and human figures held on stone, dry enough to keep pigment that long. The Libya-Chad border dispute of the 1970s and 80s ran through here. The Tubu worked their way through it. The landscape carries the record of it. From above, Emi Kusi's caldera is a ring of brown and grey rock, its rim dusted with winter snow, the only snow in this part of the continent. The Sahara spreads to every horizon, unbroken. Altitude is the escape route when the flatlands turn lethal. Below Tibesti, the desert conceals something it should have killed 10 millennia ago. In all this desert, nothing is harder to find than water. It hides deep, it surfaces rarely, and everything alive leans toward the few places it breaks the surface. In the heart of the world's largest sand sea, lakes appear. This is Ubari Oasis, more than 20 lakes inside the sand sea of southwestern Libya, where dunes climb 500 feet. The sand sea measures about 80 miles across. The deepest lake reaches 33 feet. The water is real and very old. It is fossil water, sealed underground through the Pleistocene, between 20,000 and 38,000 years ago, rising under artesian pressure. Some lakes turn 10 times as salty as the Dead Sea. Others are fresh. They glow turquoise, fed by an ancient aquifer, mirrored in dune walls that turn orange and red at dusk. The silence around them is absolute. The Garamantian civilization, which flourished from about 1000 BCE to 600 CE, solved the riddle of these buried reservoirs. They dug thousands of miles of hand-cut underground channels called foggara, horizontal wells, reaching the aquifer that feeds the Ubari lakes. The work was all by hand. The scope had no match in the ancient world. The lakes are shrinking. Oil drilling now taps that same aquifer. Aerial photos from the 1970s to today show the surface down 30 to 40%. Water laid down 20,000 years ago, saved by geological chance, is being drained in decades. If even water that survived 20,000 years is running dry, what creature would dare hold on out here? Red sandstone walls drop straight down, 165 feet to a narrow floor. Water seeps from the rock face, the only sound of water for 200 miles. This is Guelta, the one permanent pool of Chad's Enedi Plateau, set deep in a high, sealed gorge. Down here, the air stays cool and close. Every day, hundreds, sometimes thousands of camels are led into the gorge to drink. They come down in long, single-file trains, then crowd the water's edge. The Tubu work the herds. Men and boys drive the camels. From the rim above, the whole herd packs the canyon floor around the water. Ten Nile crocodiles cut off when the climate dried the rivers roughly 5 millennia ago, trapped in this canyon with no way out. In 2011, DNA analysis confirmed them as a distinct lineage. They are smaller than their river relatives. They move less. They wait. Eating desert fish on near-starvation rations, they drop their metabolism close to nothing. The desert kept the ones that could wait. The Tubu have never hunted the crocodiles. They hold them sacred. The presence of a crocodile meant the water was real, the pool permanent. The belief caused the protection. The protection enabled the survival. The Sahara trapped them. Then it forgot them in a canyon of black water and red sandstone. How can the lowest, deepest point of the whole desert be the best place to live? For 3,000 years, Siwa has kept a secret 62 feet below sea level. The Siwa Depression sits in the Libyan desert of western Egypt. Below sea level means artesian pressure. The aquifer sits higher than the basin floor, so water seeps up without stopping. More than 200 springs, 200,000 date palms, olive groves, the largest farming oasis in the Sahara, shaped by geography alone. The lowest point is the most livable. The whole town is built of kershef, a salt and mud mortar, cut straight from the nearby salt lakes. It keeps the rooms cool through the heat. Roofs and doors are palm wood. Above it all, the salt mud fortress of Shali leans over the streets, glowing gold at dusk. Part of it melted away in a rare rain. Around the oasis, turquoise salt lakes lie dense enough to float a body. About 25,000 Siwi live here, speaking their own Berber tongue. Life moves slow, built around family and the date and olive harvests. The market lays out silver jewelry stamped with Berber symbols, woven baskets and pottery. They share fresh dates, dusted with coconut, olive oil from the groves, and mint tea in cool earthen rooms. Most Siwi are Muslim, leaning to the Shadili Sufi order, and many pre-Islamic customs are still woven through daily life. Mosques with cone-shaped earthen minarets dot the oasis. Each year, the Sahara festival draws the community to Gebel Dakrur to reconcile, share long meals, and chant. Weddings here run for days, full of music, song, and dance. In 331 BCE, Alexander crossed the Libyan desert to reach the oracle of Ammon and ask whether he was divine. The oracle said yes, and he left to conquer Persia, never to return. The temple ruins rest at the edge of a salt lake, half sunk, old stone resting in turquoise water. Wind moves through the palms. An insect chorus fills the air. Fermented dates throw a smell that mixes with mineral sulfur from the springs and fresh-cut grass. Patience rewards depth. The Sahara's lowest point is its most generous. The train still runs. The crocodiles are still in the pool. The tree stood for 3 centuries. The Sahara beat none of them. The Tuareg crossed it for 2,000 years on 26 feet of cloth and a cup of tea. The river dried up, but that line of crocodiles held on. A tree outlasted everything but one Tuesday afternoon. The Sahara keeps what it cannot sustain, a record more lasting than the life it erases. Here, harshness and fragility cannot be pulled apart. The Sahara is not a dead waste of sand and not an enemy to be conquered. It is a living thing, a museum of time, standing there to remind us how thin the line runs between life and death. Which story surprised you most? The crocodiles that never left their canyon pool, the tree that stood alone for 3 centuries, or something else? Tell us in the comments.